Welcome to the Tableau user group, September. As I always say, we're always keen to find presenters. So thanks, Andy, again, amazing. So if you only want to showcase your Tableau skills or other, so we're talking, there might be a demo happening in a couple of months, maybe mid-November, with Dave. AI stuff?
AI with the link in Tableau.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So if you're interested, obviously attend. But if you want to present and showcase something in Tableau related or not, data related, I guess. Just let me know and then Dave know. Just quickly acknowledging the traditional owners, always, and pay our respect to elders, past, present, and emerging, and also extending our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that are here today. So today, so ignore me. Change your plan, because I think there's a lot of content. I thought I'd do a bit of a Tableau Next demo, but Andy has so much content to cover. Interesting content as well, which I think might be more interested than, don't listen, than Tableau if they listen. Tableau Next. We do Tableau Next later, unless you're really crying for it, and I can do a demo later, but I prefer giving Andy 45 minutes up, he said.
And you'll get questions.
And it would focus on Andy's dynamic colors. I think it's probably more awesome kind of stuff. I've got bags of swags as well. So scan your thing off, and then I'll draw a swag at the end. Tableau swag, Salesforce swag. And then we get started. Thanks, Andy, again for presenting.
Thank you very much.
Is that your second time? Sure. What was the last time you did it? Very recently, was it?
A little while.
Yeah. Did you all scan? Yeah. Can we move on?
And reading the official release text you've got there, so dynamic color ranges help you highlight what matters, even with outliers in your data. Instead of filtering, using parameters to adjust your color scale and focus attention where it counts. It's a fast, flexible way to keep your charts clear and insightful. So to summarize that, parameters can adjust your color scale. That's kind of the summary where we're getting to. As I start, and before we get into Tableau, I just want to quickly show you the change to the Tableau UI. If you've not actually loaded 2025.2, then this is where it will look a little bit different with this feature. So in 2025.2, there's no longer the advanced button that you can see there on the left that you have to expand. Instead, the start, the center, if you're using a diverging color palette, and the ends there readily available and there. So you'll just notice a little UI change as well. And I just did want to mention this as well, just so you're aware of it and you're not surprised. There seems to be a little bit of a bug with the color interface in 2025.2 as well. So if you're adding your own custom color palettes, you'll notice that it actually doesn't give you the indication of them anymore. For the ones that are built in, it does. But for some reason, it doesn't show you, as I showed you in 2025.1 there, it used to show you a demo of it. I think it's a bug. Speaking to people I know, it's not evident on the Mac version. It is only Windows, but I just wanted to point that out. If you were to install 2025.2, don't be surprised when you don't see a demo of your color palettes. Okay. Okay, so let's get into Tableau. Okay, so say we're going to start with a very simple use case. So I've got a map of the world using Superstore sales. You know, we're all kind of familiar with that data set. Just makes it nice and easy. We don't have to kind of explain the data sets. But I'm coloring each country here by total sales. And I've got a filter that means that when I select some of the countries, like this, then it filters to those countries, but you'll notice that the color range changes. So originally it went from 151 to 2.3 million. When I select some countries, it's now 2.9 thousand to 900,000. So you'll see the color range is changing as I am filtering. Sometimes this behavior is useful, but sometimes you don't want that to happen. You know, maybe you want the color range to be static. And what I mean by that is that you don't want the color range to change. I want to select some countries, but I don't want that color range to change. I want it to remain as it was, so static. And yes, I realize the irony of demonstrating dynamic color ranges by first showing you functionality to enable it to remain static. But that's where we're going to start. Okay, so of course we could kind of hard code the start and end values. You know, we go into the color palette, we've got the start and end values. I could change those and I could kind of hard code them to what I want it to be. But hard coding anything is usually a big no-no. You know, we all work in environments where new data is constantly flowing in. The idea of hard coding something like that, you know, you're just going to be constantly going in and is it still valid? Am I checking it? Okay, the color range isn't working. So we want to do something about that. So the difference now with this functionality is that we can now base a start and the end of a color range, or indeed the center if we're using the diverging color palette, on values in parameters, which is the big change. So to save time here, I've done a little bit of the legwork. So you'll see that I've got a couple of calculations. So I've got the max sum of sales. So what I'm doing here is for each country, calculate the sum of sales. I want to take the maximum of that. I've used ceiling here, I've used floor on the other one. That's just for kind of rounding numbers, don't worry about that. But then I'm taking the maximum of that country sum of sales across the whole data set. So that's what I'm doing here. So it's basically saying, okay, for all of the countries, what's the maximum sum? I want to store that max value. And I've got something that is the equivalent for the minimum, and yeah, using floor here. But as I say, that's just to kind of need some of the values. So then next I've got two parameters that you can see down here. So I've got Pmax and I've got Pmin. And if I look at those, you'll see that for the Pmax, what I'm doing, it's a float. I could have an integer, I guess, but I've got float in here. But the key thing here is that I've got when the value of the workbook opens, I'm attributing that to that max sum of sales. So when you open the workbook, you know, I've done a whole talk on parameter actions. This is more based on there, so I'm not going to go into great detail. But when I open the workbook, it's going to calculate that max sum of sales. So what's the country maximum? It's going to put it into this Pmax parameter. And then I've got exactly the same, but for Pmin taking the minimum one. Okay. But at the moment, I haven't done anything with those. All I've done is I've got the calculations. I'm storing those in the parameters. And now, because I've got those two parameters set up, what I can do is I can go into the color, and from automatic, you'll see now, before there was automatic, there was custom, I can actually choose those parameters. So for the start, I obviously want the minimum, it's going to populate that. For the end, I want the maximum, it's going to populate that. And just to demonstrate that working now, so what we've got here in this example, I've got two. I've got the original behavior I was before, so when I would select some countries, it is going to filter the color range. Whereas on this side, because I've changed that color and I've tied it into that minimum maximum, when the workbook opens, you'll see that the color doesn't change. So again, if I select some of those colors in there, you'll see that different behavior. One of them is filtering and changing that color palette. The other one, it isn't, and it's keeping it the same. As I say, that's just a simple use case to give you a feel for the change to the interface. You know, it's only a small change, but in there we can now set the start, the center, and the end on parameter values. Where we start to get a little bit more complex and arguably a little bit more realistic with the use case is where we want to change the color range but have it truly dynamic based on marks in the vis. So to build this functionality, we're going to incorporate parameter actions. And to be clear, and I want to make this really clear to you, that this is the use case that Tableau themselves demonstrated when this feature was released and promoted. I'll come back to why that's kind of important, but this is what they demonstrate as the use case. So here I've got the same initial setup as before. I've got a map with a default color range. So what I want to do in this use case though is when I select multiple countries in the vis, I want to have that color range update based on those selected countries. So similar to what we did at the beginning where the normal behavior, you filter and it changes the color, but I don't want to filter, I want to do it based on parameters instead, so it still retains all of the other countries, so that's the difference. The behavior, the end behavior is going to look like it's the same, but I'm not filtering now, I'm going to use parameters. Okay, so I'm going to start by setting up the same, so I'm going to go to my color palette, I'm going to set the start to the Pmin, I'm going to set the end to the Pmax. And then I need to set up my parameter actions. So I need two. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. I'm going to, sorry, I'm going to, dashboard. I'm going to go to, no, I've lost it. How's it go? Actions. Right, thank you.
Tell me about that happens to me.
Oh, it really doesn't change, that's what it is.
It's gremlins.
So I'm going to change my parameter value, and so this is going to be for changing P max. So when I select something in this view here, I want to change my P max parameter based on my sum of sales. Okay, the important thing now here is something that not a lot of people look at or know, but you've got this aggregation here, and this becomes really important at this point. So if I just did this here, what it's going to do, if I've selected more than one country, it's going to aggregate all of those values together, sum them all together, and store that value. Remember, parameters can only store one value. But I don't want the sum, so I'm going to change the aggregation. I'm going to make it the maximum. So what it's doing now, when I select more than one mark, it's going to look at them and say, okay, of all of these values, what's the maximum? That's the value I'm going to put in the parameter. It's really useful when you need it, that aggregation. A lot of people don't know about it and haven't looked at it. They just click and they do the other things and keep it the same and don't look at it. But it's really powerful, especially in this instance. So I'm going to do the same for changing the P min. So again, select. I want it based on that sheet. I want to change the P min. Again, based on sum of sales, but obviously my aggregation this time is going to be the minimum. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click OK. And so now, if you know, I've got the color up here as well, so you can see what's happening. I've displayed the P max and the P min, so you can see what's happening. But now when I select a number of countries, you'll see that it changes that P max and P min, it changes your color, but it hasn't filtered, it's left everything else there. Not necessarily saying this is a great use case for it. As I say, it's the one that Tableau demonstrated. But I just wanted, you can get to see the functionality. It's different to that filtering. And so, yeah, you can deselect, you can just select another range of countries, and it'll do the same thing.
Cool.
Okay, but take that one for example. But you'll notice that there's a problem. Does anybody see what the problem is?
The red. You've got a maximum ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. As Dave, as Brisbane said there, but it's the deselect. So the parameter values don't change when the selection's deselected. So there's no way without, for example, maybe let's click and we want, okay, I want all the countries, and okay, I can get back to what it was there before. But there's no good UI for returning those. There's a couple of things you could do. So you could go to your dashboard and you could go to your actions again. And I know, for example, that the maximum is about 2.3 million. And I know that the minimum is 150. So I can hard code those for what happens when you deselect or you clear the selection, and that will give you that behavior. But, we're left with that same situation again, that we're hard coding values into them, which, as we said at the beginning, isn't a good idea. So, in an ideal world, I'd want to base that, what happens when I clear the parameter, on a calculated field or even another parameter value, but we can't. So I see that as a real limitation for this use case. As I say, I can hard code the value, but it's a really bad idea. So that, in a nutshell, is how to use dynamic color ranges. As I've said, we can now control the start and the end and center of the color range based on parameter values, but it seems like it should be a real winner, really powerful. But at the moment, its use cases are really limited, and when you get down to it, that fact you've got that inability to set what happens when you clear the selection really limits those use cases further. Personally, at the moment, if this functionality I wanted to build into a workbook, I'd either use filter actions, as I did for the beginning, or maybe even you could do it with set actions. You could do something similar, which would work really well. which I would suggest on those would depend on the exact use case, but for now, yeah, it's nice and I'd love to kind of see it go further, but I just really think there's limitations with it at the moment. We can only hope that, yeah, additional functionality kind of appears in future releases. So, as I say, conclusions, limited use cases, there's that big glaring functionality hole, and yeah, we cross our fingers for that.
And has that been reported, or is there an idea on the ideas exchange forum?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I looked and it was really clear when it came out. When I did a review of it within a couple of days, one of the Fleur-Larges did a review of 25.2 and then kind of covered this as well, and it was the same conclusion they came to. It's like, nice, but it doesn't quite get there. I'd love to know though if anybody does have any, good use cases where that inability to kind of change it isn't so much of a problem. But for me, it doesn't quite get there yet. Okay, so any questions on dynamic color ranges?
Could you put a reset button on the dashboard that reset it to the max and min, at like knowing that functionality isn't there? If that makes sense, I wonder.
Yeah, I think so.
Like,
I've definitely built things in the past where you can change your parameter value clicked on the kind of reset.
Yeah, that's like to reset to the original color range. That might be an idea to get around that functionality hole.
That means you have to click twice, like deselect it and click on the refresh kind of.
It's definitely definitely like a reset. You'd have to choose that action, but that's the only way I can think.
Selecting everything.
Yeah. Or not knowing that it's there and like, oh, it's really bad. Oh no, actually you're only looking at that small
It's still the whole
cohort.
education piece though, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
when you finish using this,
Yeah.
you now need to click here, otherwise your colours are all wrong.
Yep.
Refresh.
100%.
Yeah.
There could be a little alert up the top or something.
Just got a reset button.
Yeah.
You kind of use that.
It's
and
not great,
load the
but-
page. So, but yeah, it is. I think it's kind of flawed at the moment. Unfortunately. Nice idea, but yeah, not getting there. And as I say, it was interesting that I wanted to choose that use case to demonstrate because that was the one that Tableau used. And you'll notice that in the little short video that they kind of do the animation for it, they just click and select different ranges of countries. There's no actually, okay, now I deselect, it doesn't work. So they stop just before that point, which was, yeah, so I think they may be aware of the limitations.
That's a huge downside if the user does that and then doesn't deselect and then print it as a PDF and then send it to stakeholders. That's very misleading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd want to have an alert come up that says this is selected on, almost to say that it's a subset of the colour range or the
Yeah, I think
the
you
data.
definitely want to, depending on how you do it, you definitely want to show that colour legend, wouldn't you? So that even if it's not obvious, someone can check and say, oh, why is the colour only going from? Yeah. But yeah.
You might have said, but is there any good use cases for the current functionality? You said you could use sets and filters and stuff. So,
I think the very simple one where you're not using the normal filter action behaviour is probably as far as I'd go. That, okay, I actually don't want to change my colour range and I want to keep it the same. The fact that you're, I guess, kind of storing colour values and parameters mean that you could have a couple of charts.
use it
And
across.
so you're filtering one, but the colour range goes to the second one, because you can put those same parameter values in that second colour thing. So, perhaps that. But it kind of, as I say, you're using dynamic colour ranges to keep a colour range static, which kind of seems counterintuitive.
I can see where that would work, implying the colours from the first chart to the second chart.
Yeah.
That would be useful.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think it's just keeping them static you want to do it. But if you're doing any other way, then you use sets.
Sets is
Yeah, I remember one of the first talks I did of this was on set actions and things when it first came out, and that was one of my use cases there in terms of using set actions, which is a little while ago now. But
I've taught a lot of people based on that.
He just plays the video.
Yes. Okay, so that's the shorter of the two. The next one is a little bit longer, and I think, hopefully, a little bit, happier news than this one, shall we say. Okay, so now we're going to look at custom themes. Custom themes were released in 2025.1, so the previous version. And the official description, I just wanted to put in there as well, so a little bit longer, but ensure consistent and repeatable formatting across all of your workbooks. Create a theme once and reuse it when building new workbooks or apply it to existing workbooks to quickly update them. The newly created custom theme will carry over once published to Tableau Cloud and Tableau Server. You can use any existing workbook as the template and export the style as a theme, and then apply that custom theme to any other workbook. The new functionality is available under the format menu in Tableau Desktop. You'll see that in a moment as well. Okay, so this is an idea that's been around and been popping up on the forum ideas for a while. I attended a presentation at Tableau Conference 25 earlier this year, where this feature was being displayed because I was kind of really hopeful it was going to be really great, and the speakers showed the earliest occurrence you could find on the forums of people raising this, and it was from 13 years ago.
Jeez.
So it's been around a little while. When I said at the beginning it's great they take ideas, sometimes it takes a while to get there, but they can. So basically the idea here is to provide a solution to this question. How can I reuse formatting across workbooks? It's such a great idea. People have been asking it from at least 2012, but especially when you work in kind of a company environment, you're in-house and you want to kind of do things standard, then it sounds like it'd be a really good idea. So let's see how well it achieves its stated aims. Okay. Just going to close that one so it's out of the way. Okay, so in this workbook on the sheet, I'm going to make some formatting changes. Just want to make clear at the beginning here, though, that the changes I'm going to make, I'm making so they're visible. I'm definitely not saying these are best practice, visual best practice. I just want to make changes that are visible. None of the dashboards I build will look like this, but as I say, I just want to make sure that are visible.
Such a caveat. No judging.
Okay, so you'll see. So I'm going to format the workbook. Really great thing if you don't know about formatting the workbook, it kind of applies it across obviously the whole workbook. I'm going to change my overall font. I'm just going to pick
Times New Roman.
I was looking for Comic Sans. Okay,
Do it.
I'm going to wipe it on the sheet, I'm going to format, I'm going to change the background to yellow, I'm going to change the shoot.
That's weird.
Red.
What is close?
That's not bad.
Take a photo. That looks like Star Wars.
It is the Star Wars film. I'm going to change the title of the font. I'm going to change the tooltip and make that green and a different one.
Oh, they are really green, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're already green. I'm going to go to the lines. I'm going to change my grid lines. I'm going to make them red and thick and dotted.
There we go. That's better.
Can you set this up as an XML file that can be shared somewhere?
Well, I can export it as a custom theme and give it to you.
That's actually not too bad.
Yeah, okay. Oh, before I move on, actually, something I just want to show, a quick tip. It's not related to custom themes, but did want to quickly show you. So when you're formatting, sometimes you can change some formatting, and you've applied some formatting, you've then gone and changed some formatting somewhere else, and you've changed some formatting somewhere else, and you come back and actually, I want to revert to what it was at the beginning. I don't know kind of how to do that. One thing that's really great to know, and if you don't know about it, that when you change something on formatting, you'll see that it bolds the text, which is really great for knowing at least where you've made the change. But even better is if you right click on that and then clear, and it goes back to the default. which is a really nice little tip.
That's great. Good tip. Excellent.
That bolding only occurs during the current session, I assume, so.
I don't think so.
No.
I think it carries over. It's anything that you have changed.
Mm.
Like that. So yeah, it would still be there. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Even if you choose the pre-selected option, it will still bold it. So
Yes, because you've made a change to it.
because you've made the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice.
So yeah, it's a really nice little tip. Before I look at custom themes though, actually I haven't finished, so I did want to just change this to, actually there, go and put thick, boy, can't even read it now, but never mind. Okay. There's some reasons why I did those certain things. But before we move on to custom themes, I just want to quickly take the time to remind you the old way, so copying and pasting formatting. So of course, I can right click on the tab, I can copy format, I can go to a different sheet, I can right click and I can
Paste format.
paste formatting and it formats the font. So worth bearing in mind that is always an option. We'll look a little bit more down it in a minute, but this has got some pros, right? So it takes the vast majority of all the formatting that I've changed. It opens in the it works in the same workbook, but you can also do it across workbooks, so you can paste formatting in a different workbook as well. But it's got some cons, so you need to have access to the master workbook, have it open so you can copy formatting. Also, it only works on one sheet at a time. I couldn't select all the sheets and paste formatting across all of them. And also, of course, if I added a new sheet at this point, it's going to go back to the default formatting. It's not going to pick up this formatting I've done. So it's got some pros, it's got some cons, but that is always an option. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. Before I move on, I just do want to change the colour of my marks. I'm going to make them bright pink.
You rehearse this rehearsed, don't
So bright pink, I'll put a border around it and it's transparent. So I want you to remember those things. Okay, so where the magic happens on this one, if you go to Formats, you'll see that we've got an import and an export custom theme. And that's the new things. We've got workbook theme here. You've always had that. Nobody's ever looked at it, but it does exist. Most of you, I think, will never have known that it even exists there. There's some default ones, previous, modern, classic that you can change to. Nobody in the history of Tableau has ever used those, but they do exist. So I'm going to export this custom theme here. So much she's got confused. Okay, so themes. You'll notice that what it's doing, it's actually creating a JSON file. I'm just going to call this. Theme01, and I can save that. And so I've created a JSON file, which we'll look at in a moment, that contains these changes. Okay, so if I go to my themes file, I can edit that with Notepad+. And it's probably quite small, but you'll see that that's what it's doing. It's taking and it's got what the font is across the whole workbook, what the tooltip font is, what the worksheet, so on, and it's got the changes I've made within there. What I can do there is now I can apply it to another workbook. So I'm going to come to this sheet here, I'm going to go to Format, I'm going to go Import Custom Theme. I'm going to select that JSON, and I'm going to click Open. At this point you get an option. You can either override or you can preserve. In this sheet here, you'll see, for example, that I've changed the default of the bars. They're green, not the normal blue you would get. So here what I'm going to do is first I'm going to show you Preserve. So if I click Preserve, it's applied some of those changes, but it's left that green because I've changed that already. So that's what Preserve does. I'm going to undo, I'm going to do it again, import, and this time I'm going to do override, and you'll see now it's picked up that pink and changed to green because I've got it to override any changes I've made in that workbook.
Sorry, Andy, just quickly on that. Is it just the
staple colours and that sort of thing that makes the difference between those two options, or are there other options you're aware of? So there I'm talking about all that kept all the input formatting except the colour of bars.
Right. No, it's basically if you have got anything in your custom theme that would change anything that you have changed in the workbook where you're importing it, it will retain that. So it basically looks and says, okay, you're changing the font on this particular thing. You've changed it. So like we were looking for, it's got a bold against it. You're going to preserve that and not going to change it.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got an empty line there, you know. So now, yes, I'm going to apply that.
So it's applying against things that you haven't changed.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And have you tried this on like a dual axis chart to see what happens to the other color?
No, but I think it would work. We'll come on to exactly what is changing and what isn't in a minute. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
You could also apply padding. Padding is part of format. Like padding, cell padding and table padding.
No.
No.
As I say, we'll come back to exactly what you can change and what you can't in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, I want you to note though that some things haven't changed. So for example, up here we've got the colour of the box, we've got the green on there. Those things haven't changed. Also, you'll note that I went out of my way to change the bars on the other one to have a border and to be transparent. These are just solid pink, no border and things. So you'll note there's some things that are changing and some things that aren't. As I was saying, just saying to Dave that it's not resetting everything to default and applying the theme. It's looking if you've changed it, and if you have changed it, not applying what it wants to. So I go to that sheet and you see, I had all of those sheets and now all of them have those things applied. One thing, for example, here, so you'll see on this one down here in the bottom left, I've changed the colour of the font of that title. So it has left that as green rather than black, which wouldn't seem to be the behaviour I was just talking about. So I want you to bear that in mind as well. It's not changed the colour of their borders, it's not got that shading and things like that. What I do want to note though is that if I was to add a new sheet, and builds a new chart, it's actually doing that formatting. So an advantage over the copying and pasting and formatting is that now the theme is applied, and you can see that by going to Format. Now is a place you would use that workbook theme. You can see I've got that theme on applied. So that shows you that. So now this workbook has that theme applied, and anytime I open a new sheet and I build anything, I'm going to have that theme applied, which is nice.
So when I'm applying the theme, do we get an option to choose which sheets I want to apply that to?
No, you're applying it to the whole workbook. Yeah. Okay, and something that I've not seen people talking about, but that again is a really nice use case. So you'll see in this workbook, I've got the one that I first built, which is where I built the theme, but it's not applied to everything else. What you can actually do is you can actually build a sheet with your theme. You can export the theme, and then you can import the theme into the workbook you've just built that theme. Override, and it will then take that theme. So that's kind of, something that's a nice way to use it as well. But again, you'll note there are some things that haven't changed. So the colours of these bars, the colours of the map, I kind of did the grey in the box on there. It's not doing those on here. So that's the brief demo, and we've already kind of started, but if you're anything like me, you've got 1,000 questions going through your head. We've had some of them here right now, so what I want to do now is, I just want to spend a little time looking at some of the questions. So some of the questions I had when I was going through this. So firstly, what exactly is happening here? So, as we said, we're creating a JSON file, but more than that, we're actually adding that JSON file then to the TWDX file, so the package workbook. So to show you that, I'm going to come back into this one that I applied it to. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my File Explorer. If you haven't seen this, then this is just a little tip on here. But if you've got a TWBX, you can unpackage that. It'll take a little time thinking about it, but then it will give you a TWB for the same workbook, which effectively is just an XML file, and it will give you a file that contains your data, which is your extracts. But also you'll notice I went past it, but now I've got that theme embedded. So that's what you're doing. When you're doing it with a package workbook, so a TWBX file, you actually embedded that JSON file within your package workbook.
If I say that, if I apply that to a TWB instead of a
We'll get that. We'll
TWBX,
get that.
it is,
We're covering that. Would I have missed that? Okay. So the next thing is, and it's I've jumped around a little bit, but this one is grayed out here. So then my thought was, okay, if you've got a JSON file in the TWBX, can you crack open the TWBX, paste in a JSON file, repackage it and get it to work? The answer is no.
Oh, really?
So there must be something in there, and I don't know what it is, but there must be something in there that's picking up a date or a versioning or something like that, and that means you can't do that. Because, yeah, my thought is maybe systematically you want to do that and be able to crack it up and do it, but no, you can't do that, which is a shame.
So it doesn't. So it doesn't come in as an option in the themes either. So it doesn't recognize it at all.
No, it's just not there.
If you like open the XML file with a VS Code or something and then search for JSON, is there like a reference to the same direction?
I didn't get that far in preparing this, but yeah, I mean potentially you could. That, yeah, the XML file is going to reference it somewhere to say you've applied the theme. Yeah, I didn't get that far looking at that and seeing doing that. I mean, basically, it was a tiny little edge case I was looking at anyway. You know, whether it would actually be useful or not. You know, I'm not quite sure, so I didn't explore that any further. But yeah, I mean, you know, we're all kind of inquisitive. You know, all of us are like, well, if you could do that, but unfortunately not. Okay. The next big questions I had then is what exactly is included? Because you saw in the examples that some things aren't carried across, and so it isn't everything. So I've got a list here of what is included. There's a lot here, I'm not going to go through it in great detail, but there is a link, and you can find that just by looking at formatting custom themes. On the Tableau help page, you go down to the bottom here, and it actually gives you the style elements that are currently included. One thing I do want to note on there is, while not all style elements available in Tableau are currently supported for custom themes, we will be adding more style elements in future releases. So they make that call out here, that it's not complete, it's just a start. At TC, when I was there, they made that point as well. But yeah, it kind of talks about this. Mainly fonts and colours at the moment. There's not a lot else, but there are places where things don't change, so yeah, that's kind of reference there. Okay. Formatting in Tableau can be a messy beast. You make some changes, you make some more changes. Sometimes the changes that you made up second up don't actually apply because, why? And that's all due to this Tableau formatting hierarchy. We talked a little bit about it earlier that, for some things haven't changed. So what we've got here is the hierarchy of increasing precedence. And I kind of struggle for a word with precedence, power, potency, authority, dominance, I don't know, but I settled on precedence. And what I mean by that is that if you make a change lower down the hierarchy, so towards the pointy end we've got there, then that takes precedence. So if you're doing something where you're formatting the whole workbook, it will apply that change. But then if you go and make a change to an individual sheet, that one will take precedence, not what you did at a workbook level. If you then go to the rich text, so actually changing in the tooltext box or something like that, and changing that will take precedence over what you've set here. So we've all kind of experienced this using Tableau, but this is kind of how it's done. And the reason I wanted to show that here is just to kind of illustrate where custom themes sit. So custom themes are below the built-in themes, which obviously, as I said, nobody ever uses. It's the first thing that's applied. That anything else you change in your workbook below that will mean that your custom theme will not work. And when we come to some of the other things later on that they talk about what next, I'm going to share some of those things. It's important to remember that anything you make below custom themes in a workbook, you apply the custom theme will not apply. Okay, so finally on the question of what is included, it's important to remember that an export file is sheet specific. So what I mean by that is on that first workbook where I was applying all of those changes to that sheet, if I did export theme from that sheet, the JSON file I'm going to get is very different to if I went to one of my other sheets and did export theme. It's just going to do it from that sheet. It's going to look and say, okay, what's at the workbook level, because that's over everything, and see, put that in there, but in terms of the changes that you've made to the sheet, it is sheet specific, so it's important to remember that. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, but it's just important to know that. Okay, so the next question then concerns file format, and indeed data source format. So coming to your point, Dave, that you were saying. So as we've already seen, when we import a custom theme, we're actually embedding that JSON file in the package workbook. But what about if we've got a TWB? So an unpackaged workbook. And does the data source need to be an extract? All important considerations. Well, firstly, what we've got here, so this one I applied it to, is actually a TWB, so unpackaged workbook, and you see that I've got no extract there. Okay. What I want you to note when I go to this folder here is I've got that TWB, but there's no theme file there. I want you to note that in that directory there's no JSON file. Maybe preempting what you're going to see here, but if I was to save that and then go back to my file explorer, you can see that I've now got that JSON file. So if you're doing an unpackaged workbook, there's no thing to unpack it, there's no zipped up file, there's nowhere to put it, it just stores it separately. So you have to use a TWBX or a packaged workbook. Obviously, if you're doing it locally, this file would work. If I close this and I reopened it, it's going to look locally, it's going to see the theme, it's going to apply it, but you couldn't publish this. If you publish this, the theme's not going to apply because it's not taking the JSON file with it. And then, of course, let's say it's possible to save a TWBX, but with a live connection. And so it's worth kind of thinking through there. But here we've got two outcomes. So if you're using a local file as a data source, so something like Excel, then just in case you weren't aware that if you publish that, it's actually going to extract it and publish as an extract, so a package workbook anyway. So in that case, it will take the JSON file with it and that will work. Whereas if you're using something that's cloud or server-based data source that your Tableau site can see, then it actually converts your TWBX file. It looks and says, oh no, you've only got live connections in there. When I publish, I'm actually going to convert that to an unpackaged workbook, and then we're back with the TWB situation, so it isn't going to take a JSON file with you. And I hadn't realized until actually kind of playing with this and experimenting that what you publish, or ends up on your site or server, might not be the same as your workbook that you've built it. That sometimes it will convert it from a packaged workbook to unpackaged if you've got a live connection, or it will convert it from unpackaged to packaged if you've got a local file like an Excel file. So just worth kind of bearing in mind. So to summarize, if you want custom themes to work on your cloud or server sites, then they need to be, at the moment, you need to be using a TWBX with an extract as the data source. At least right now. They might change that, but right now you are limited to that little subsection. say that just summarises what we talked about. Web authoring, not currently at the moment. So if you're web authoring, there's no option to import a theme from there or even export a theme, but yeah, you can't do it web authoring. Okay, before we wrap up then, there's some quick gotchas I need to mention that's worth you being aware of. Some of these you've seen already, but I just want to re-emphasize them. So, firstly, a custom theme only reformats style elements that are currently supported. So just making that really clear. As we saw, we made some formatting changes that were not applied because they're not supported. They're not on that list on the help page that we looked at. And equally, when that theme was applied, formatting changes in the receiving workbook remained as they were because there's nothing in the theme to tell them to change. So just being aware that some things will change, some things won't. Secondly, as we saw, so transparency is a problem. And that's in two ways. So we saw with those transparency on the marks on the bars, that's not carried forward. You end up, you haven't got the same transparency when you go forward. But there was actually a workbook I was experimenting with where I was actually using the transparent background colour, where you use the 8-digit hex code. Not going to go into that detail there. There's a great blog by one of the Foulages on that you can look at, but you can actually, in your custom colour palette, have a transparent colour that is sometimes useful. When I tried to, so I had a dashboard that was using that, I exported the theme, I re-imported the theme to the same workbook, and it said, no, don't like this, because I exported that 8-digit code. So just be aware of that. We were just talking about it, but remember that custom themes to work when you're publishing a workbook, you have to be using an extracting package workbook. And then finally here, copying and pasting has its downsides, but actually currently it's more comprehensive in terms of what formatting is carried across. So just bear that in mind. I'm sure they'll be looking to fix that, and we're going to look at some of the things in a minute, but at the moment, copying and pasting is going to be more reliable in terms of what it actually takes. So some of those things we were looking at before that aren't being carried forward, copying and pasting will do that. And just some technical gotchas. So there's currently limits to the size of the theme file. The theme path has a limit as well, so that's the whole path, not just the file name. Just be wary of that as well. File name's got a constraint with what characters it can contain. And it just bears mentioning that fonts need to be available. So that includes on the machine you're using, if you're using somebody else's theme, but also indeed on cloud and server when you're publishing. How fonts are rendered on cloud and server is kind of a whole thing, and definitely not something I'm going into now. But if you want to know more, there's a very good blog on the subject that I can kind of point you to. Or you can kind of just Google it. So, to conclude, what do I think of custom themes? Well, right now it's a start. As we've seen, there are still limitations. It gets some of the way there, but not completely. The good news is though that Tableau have been very vocal that this is the first release only. You know, I showed you that on the help page. At the talk I was at, they were very clear about that more style elements will be included in future releases. And then the talk I attended at TC actually did go further. So they definitely talked about more settings such as banding and padding, as you'll talk about, Fred, background objects and things, so there are plans to build more things in. They also made it clear that they want to ensure that new formatting features are included in custom themes. So when we do get rounded corners or workbook level colour palettes, which we've talked about and may even be in 2025.3, we can expect those to be supported by custom themes, at least what I heard at TC. And web authoring as well. They want you to allow to import a theme when working on a workbook in the browser. And then in terms of wider enterprise solutions regarding custom themes as well, so they want admins to be able to apply a custom theme in bulk across a site or server. Red flags go off in my head when I hear that one. What's going to happen? You know, this brings me back to that hierarchy we were looking at, and why I wanted to kind of bring that up. It's important that some admin somewhere decides they want to apply this theme across all the dashboards. It's not going to work if people have changed things further down. Any formatting changes that are made because of where that custom themes sit are not going to be applied. So you may end up publishing something, an admin changes and applies this custom theme, and your workbook doesn't look any good anymore. They want to allow a site-wide default theme to be applied as a workbook is published. Again, so many red flags, so many alarms going off in my head with that one as well. Just for those same reasons that you design a workbook, you design a dashboard. There's no guarantee that theme is going to work with it.
Yeah.
And finally, they want to have themes as publishable assets. And this one I actually do quite like. So just like workbooks, data sources, prep flows, they want users to be able to publish custom themes to cloud and service so that they can be downloaded or applied directly from a centralized library. So that'd be I like that idea, that's kind of quite nice. So basically, yes, it's a start, they're promising more. So to wrap up, 4 useful references for you. So firstly, I've got that Tableau documentation we looked at. I've got a link to the recording of the TC talk as well, so you can hear exactly what I heard. There's a link to a Tableau Tim video, which is great on the subject of custom themes. And finally, I just want to draw your attention to a great non-official custom theme tool, which is developed by Tristan at Lat Data Viz, which is kind of really nice and fits with this. So I just wanted to show you that.
You got some great stuff actually.
Yeah, he got some amazing stuff, but this, just sticking with custom themes at the moment, he actually has this tool here. And one of the great things about it is it only includes the things that are currently supported. So you can see exactly what's going to change. But if I want to change my font color, I want to change my background color, I want to change the color of my marks and things, I can do that, see what it looks like. And then the great thing about it is I can export. And you export and it's going to create that JSON file exactly the same, and then you can do something with it and import it. Alternatively, if you want to see what a JSON file looks like and don't want to take it in the workbook, you can import one here as well and do exactly the same. So if I wanted to, I could take my theme that I've just created. Oh, what is wrong with my machine today? Take that, and so yeah, it's important to show you exactly what I've changed and what I haven't. So really great tool, as I say, well worth looking at, and as Dave says, there's some amazing things on that dashboard as well. So yeah, custom themes. Any questions? Sarah?
Hi. Do you mind going back to the formatting hierarchy, please? Just so it makes sense in my brain. Even if you select a custom theme and you select override, are you saying it won't change anything below that custom theme layer? So
Yes,
it's a
if
partial
you
override.
have changed it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Done.
Hang on, no.
No, that's
No, it will change it, sorry, but then if you subsequently change anything, it will kind of,
Okay.
it will override.
So
Override will override.
Yes.
If you
Override.
re-import the custom theme
Yes.
within, so override is override. Oh yeah, cool,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, override, as I said today before, override is basically saying, okay, you're changing this element. Have you changed this element before? Yes, I'm going to put it. Whereas preserve is, have you changed it? No. You're going to say the same. But yes, so it will change those things, which is then, yeah, coming back to what I was saying about all those red flags about server-based stuff, that it's going to change those things that you have been deliberate about changing in your dashboard to make it look nice. Your dashboard may not look nice anymore. So yes, it will go down and will change any of those things that you've changed. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
The formatting that you said, did it apply to the maps, right? So, in the example that you had, so like, is there a special type of formatting that you have to set or?
No, so here, for example, you see that I haven't just got the default colour. What I've done, they've actually put a measure on the colour, and so it's not going to override that. When we get workbook colour palettes, which again was talked about at TC this year, then yes, potentially, you could say, oh, because I'm using that colour palette, yes, this is the palette that I chose, then it will work. But at the moment, you'll notice the only things it was changing, like this one, again, I've got a measure on my colour, it's not going to change that. Whereas my timeline, because I don't have anything on here, it's not going to change that.
I could see that the publishing of the custom theme would get around that TWB versus TWBX because it doesn't need to be packaged anymore. like as a separate JSON file. So I guess that's where they're moving to, and that's probably how they're going to get past the TWB.
Yes.
If it's just a TWB without an extract,
You
it's
don't have
not
to take it with you because
currently.
it's there already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and just like you can connect to a published data source, I'd imagine you could
Yeah.
import a published thing. Yeah. Yeah, totally right. So,
And then theoretically, if you change that custom theme that's published, it would, you know, be site-wide theoretically. Or
I
you
think
know,
that would
if
be
you
the
were
idea, right? Yes.
if you were utilising, that would be a way of making
yes,
them.
it would be a live theme
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely, if you're using it.
Yeah.
Which sounds great. Sounds like a really good idea, but
Yeah. Could.
you'd have to
Throw up
review every
issues.
single word, I think. So it's tricky.
Thanks, Andy, for this.
Really?